Hi guys, in this lesson I'm going to talk about how to improvise on a B-flat jazz blues using arpeggios. I had a request to make a lesson on how to solo on a B-flat blues in the same way that I had made a lesson on how to come up with some comping ideas. So a simple approach that you can apply just to get through the blues and something to build on and expand on to really get into playing on that. In my lesson on comping on the blues, I go over the chords. I simplified them a little bit because when you're soloing you don't really need to play all the cadences all the time. So you can choose to only play one chord if there's two chords in a bar, for instance. So the progression that I'm going to use for this lesson is this. So it's a blues in B flat, so B flat 7, E flat 7, B flat 7, E flat 7, E diminished, B flat 7, G7, C minor 7, F7, B flat 7, and then back to F, and then back on the top. So those are the chords that I'm going to use, and those are the arpeggios that I'm going to give you. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can practice the arpeggios by themselves, and how you can practice them on the song or in the progression, so that you can put it to use. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about how I go about making lines with the arpeggios just to make it sound more musical. Okay, so let's first go over the arpeggios. So this is quite simple, since we only have 6 chords in the progression. I chose to do it like this. So the B flat 7 arpeggio is this. The E flat 7 is this. The E diminished is this. The G7 is this. The C minor 7 is this. Oh, sorry. And the F7 is this. As you can see, I'm not using the 6th string at all for this. The reason why I did that was that I chose to take the arpeggios in one position, so that it's easy to connect them. And I took only as many notes so that I can fit them in one bar. That makes it easier when you start practicing them on top of the progression, which you can do in different ways. So let's just first look at some exercises with the arpeggios. When I practice arpeggios, then I don't only play them like up and down like this, because you need to use them not as much as something that you play from beginning to end, but something that you just sort of fit in a context where you already maybe have a scale, or you're coming from somewhere else and stuff. So to get as free as possible, I tend to also try and do patterns like which is the arpeggio played in groups of 3. Another good one is to skip one all the time. So it's almost like playing the arpeggio in what you might call diatonic thirds, which of course doesn't really make any sense because it doesn't have anything to do with thirds. But that would be this. And of course you can do other things too, like or whatever you can come up with. Actually, anything you can come up with, try it out. You don't really need to play it fast. This is about getting as much overview and knowing the arpeggio and in this position as well as possible. The better you know it, the easier it is. Because the next thing that happens is that you need to play it first just on the track, in the progression, and also you need to make lines, and while you're making lines you need to sort of just transition to this arpeggio coming from somewhere else. So the better you know it, the easier that is. So the next thing you can do is to practice the arpeggios on the progression. So if I take these arpeggios in a simple way through the progression, it's going to be something like this. So another good exercise to do is to play the arpeggios through the progression, but instead of changing to the lowest note all the time, you just change to the nearest note in the next arpeggio. I actually made a lesson on how to do this with scales, which I'm going to link to here. But the principle is the same. So I'm just going to start playing on the B-flat 7 arpeggio, and then try to move to the note that's the closest on the E-flat when I get there. So that's going to be something like this. And of course, you really need to know your arpeggios to do an exercise like this, but it's a very useful thing to just go through, and it really helps connecting. Okay, so now we have that. Let's talk a little bit about how you then make lines with this material. So if you're a bit more familiar with arpeggios, then the next thing to start looking into is how do you actually make some music with this? How do I come up with some lines that sound good? And the way I approach this is that I play towards the note in the next chord all the time. Because if you do that, then your lines will always have a sense of direction and make much more sense, because they're sort of moving towards something. They're not just notes on top of a chord that sort of happens to fit. So the way to do this is, of course, to figure out like which notes do I want to land on. And I don't think there are any rules really. I mean, you need to use, in this case we only use the chord notes because we're playing with the basic arpeggio, so they're all related to the chord, but some of them were not in the chord before them. So if I'm playing from B-flat 7 to E-flat 7, then the B-flat is not really going to sound like now we change chord, because that was already there. But if I chose the 7th, so the D-flat, that wasn't in the B-flat 7, so then you can really hear that it's changing. The same could be said for the G. So in that way you can make lines. That would be something like this. So as soon as I'm introducing this note, you can hear that now we change chord. So that would be sort of going through a chorus, and the target notes that I use, they're pretty much, in this case, the 3rd and the 7th for all the chords except the diminished chord actually. So what I'm doing now is, I would say, like, if you take these two notes for instance, okay, these are the notes that I want to hit when I'm playing the B-flat 7. And the D-flat and the G are the notes I want to hit when I play towards the E-flat 7. And then try and make some lines. For now, maybe not in the progression, just going a bit from chord to chord, just to check it out and just to get used to how that is. If you're not already familiar with the progression, then you can also just try it. But if you're not that familiar with playing on changes, then probably the best way to do this is just to slowly try and make some lines and see, well, if I start here on the arpeggio, what can I do with it? So something like, so now I'm trying to hit the G coming from the G on the E flat 7 coming from the B flat 7. So that's something like this. So that was a bad example, so let's do that again. Okay, so those are a few ideas, just using the B flat 7 arpeggio and then landing here. And I guess what you can see is also sometimes I end up not playing something that really works because I'm really trying to come up with something new. I'm not using what's in my fingers too much. I'm just really trying to go, okay, how do I hit that note in a way? What didn't I do yet? Because you want to practice that a bit when you're doing it in this tempo, and then once you play, you have to sort of have that automated a bit. For the B flat 7, I'm using the 7th and 3rd, same for the E flat. B flat is still the same, E flat 7. On the E diminished, well, I think I've written down this. I mean, you can use the same as on the E flat, because the E diminished is the same as the E flat 7, except that the root is a half step higher. And actually, that means that it's probably that note you kind of want to hit if you want to have a clear line that you can hear. Now it's changing to this chord without having to hear the chords at the same time. So the E is probably the most important target note on that. Well, then it goes back to B flat 7, and then you probably want to resolve towards the D and the A flat again on the B flat 7. On the G7, again, 3rd 7, the same for the C minor, and the F7, and then we've had all of them. I think the advantage to this approach is, of course, that you can just, basically you can practice any progression like this. Just pick a place on the neck with the progression and find some arpeggios, and then just sort of try and make some lines with it. It's something that I do really a lot if I have progressions that are difficult to play on, because you're sort of going back to the essential part of the progression and just trying to work with that, and you can make really a lot of good solos just using the chord notes. That works fine. You don't really need to involve all the things right away. So for that, this is something that's very useful to be able to do on any progression. And it works well for a simple approach for something like this, blues in B flat, because you can, in a fairly short amount of time, get something that will work. And of course, I mean, now we took like 5 strings in one position, and if you really work on this, you need to work it out in other positions too, because you need to be able to do this on the whole neck. But once you have it worked out in one place, and you sort of have the thought process and you hear it, like you will if you play like this, if you play clearly and you're aiming towards notes that are clearly giving you the change of chord and the sound of the new harmony, then that's going to make it a lot easier to work on other progressions too, and other positions. So those were a few exercises and a few ideas on how to work on this. I hope you can use it. If you have any comments, then feel free to put them on the video, or connect with me on Facebook or Twitter or Google+, and let me know there. I hope you can use the stuff that I presented here. And if you like the video, then you can of course like the video here on YouTube, and you can subscribe to my channel if you want to stay up to date with whatever lessons and other stuff that I'm coming up with. You can also subscribe to my newsletter on my website to be up to date with lessons, and also with if I put up new charts for arpeggios or scales or something like that. So yeah, thank you for watching.